Welcome to a new series by Friends of the Parks dedicated to lifting up the voices of young people. Our goal for this series is to highlight Chicago youth driving environmental, social, and economic justice. Their stories help to inspire, equip, and mobilize all of us, including the next generation of park activists. I'm Andrea Dennis, your host, and I serve as the Director of Environmental Education and Engagement for Friends of the Parks. I am on a lifelong journey of being an advocate for equity, and I am grateful to be on this journey with all of you. We are so excited to kick off this series with our first guest, Yesenia Chavez. Yesenia is a member of the United Neighbors of the 10th Ward, a student at Olive-Harvey College, and an activist in an ongoing hunger strike to prevent a metal shredding company from relocating to the southeast side of Chicago. I came across Yesenia's name in the news and when she was recently featured on a panel of Gen Z climate justice leaders who sit at the vanguard of the movement for social change, hosted by the Freshwater Lab of University of Illinois at Chicago. And I also discovered that she is a friend and former cat sitter of one of Friends of the Park's ongoing volunteers that I have the privilege of working with. Shout out to Lauren and her cat Roxy. Welcome to this series, Yesenia, and thank you so much for joining us and being our first guest, especially as you endure this ongoing hunger strike.
Thank you. I'm really excited. Thank you for making the space for me to speak on what's going on with the hunger strike on the southeast side.
Absolutely. To kick this off, our conversation will be shared with a wide range of listeners, from elementary students to high school teens and to other interested folks. And we want to start out by giving context to your activism. There's been a lot of uproar about General Iron moving its facilities from Lincoln Park to the southeast side, half a mile from two public schools and next to Rowan Park. We partner with one of these schools, George Washington Elementary, with our Nature Along the Lake program, and we are an advocate for parks all around the city. So this hits close to home for our students and our advocacy work. Can you give listeners a little background on who you are and what is happening to the neighborhood?
Definitely. So I am a lifelong resident of the southeast side. I was born and raised in a neighborhood that's called South Chicago. And, I went to grammar school there. My mom went to school there. When my grandparents first came from Mexico to Chicago, this is where we resided. So we're rooted in the 10th Ward. I started, just a little bit of background about me. I'm a really big advocate for mental health and public health, especially when it comes to equity and students being involved in those conversations, because oftentimes they're left out. I'm currently a student, as you mentioned, at Olive-Harvey College. I'm studying biology to pursue medicine and ultimately become a physician. I don't know exactly where I want to end up with medicine, but I do know that I want to be in the field for sure. With my advocacy and the campaign with General Iron, it started last year for me. And I was just kind of on Facebook, just scrolling around, and I came across a post by an organization on the southeast side named Southeast Environmental Task Force, which I'm now associated with as well. And they posted an article about General Iron moving to the southeast side after various explosions and safety violations in Lincoln Park, which was very concerning to me, because when I looked at the location of the proposed site, which is on 116th and Burley, it's literally right across the street from where my little sister goes to school. So I did a bit more research and noticed that the nature of the business was in the metal shredding, specifically cars. And it's really concerning because, it's pretty evident that there's going to be some pollution released with shredding of vehicles like that. So my sister, unfortunately, also has asthma. So it was an immediate concern for me, because I didn't know exactly how, at the time, how it would affect her health, even irritate her asthma and make it flare up. So someone that's really overprotective of my little sister was like, this is not happening, what do we have to do to make sure that something doesn't come into our neighborhood? And like my sister, the demographic on our side of town is predominantly Black, Latinx, and immigrant descent for our residents. And then there's a low childhood opportunity index along with high economic hardship. So about 44% of the children in our ward deal with poverty, unfortunately. So their immune systems are already compromised because of disparities that come along with financial issues. And a lot of the families are also affected by asthma too. About 15% of the adults in our ward have asthma, which is crazy because I grew up thinking that having asthma was like a normal thing. You know, like a lot of my cousins had it, and my little sister. And, you know, I was like, why don't I have asthma? Like all the cool kids have it, you know, like why didn't I get the chance to get asthma? But little did I know it was actually a severe health issue.
Mm-hmm.
So with all that, I just kind of started acting out of like honestly desperation to just not have more pollution on the southeast side, because we already have over 70 industrial sites that are releasing so much toxins and just pollution into our atmosphere in general. And the fact that it's across the street from a green site, which is Rowan Park, and then an elementary school and a high school is just baffling. So I started just making phone calls like to the ward up north in Lincoln Park just to see what those organizers did to kick this company out of their neighborhood, you know, and they instructed me to get in touch with some of the big greens like Sierra Club and jump on those calls because they were still organizing. So I did. And through there, I was introduced to a couple of other organizers on the Southeast side, like leaders from the Southeast Side Coalition to Ban Pet Coke, and leaders in the Southeast Environmental Task Force. And they had pretty much all the information I needed to really act on my fears. So they gave me the tools, and we started campaigning from there. It was a pretty long journey to get here now to the hunger strike. At first, we primarily focused on just educating constituents and residents on how they can get involved, what was going on, the hazards of this company, their history, and how the city was just not being transparent with the process of issuing their permits. Like the first permit that they were issued was under secrecy, unfortunately, and the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency lied as far as them not being able to consider previous environmental hazards when that wasn't true. It's in their laws that they can, and that is a basis to deny a permit. So that was also concerning to us. So we, you know, kind of upped our movements and added a lot more pressure and demanded even just simple things like translation at town halls, you know, and it was really bizarre to me that we even had to demand something like that from the city, knowing that the demographic, or a large part of our demographic on the Southeast side, was predominantly Latinx. So that wasn't a necessary component to make sure that voices that are predominantly Spanish speaking or only Spanish speaking in our ward were elevated. So there's a lot of obstacles and brick walls that we had to break through in order to just get a basic, in my opinion, a basic message across that this is hazardous to our health. You know, we've already been dumped on for over, you know, since the 70s when Republic Steel was in our ward, and we don't want any more pollution. And we just didn't get much traction from the city, even after all of those efforts, which was really, really disappointing and heartbreaking, and in a sense, very depressing. But instead of kind of falling into depression, I decided to keep acting and keep asking, how can we help? How can we keep moving forward? So as kind of a last resort, we proposed a hunger strike, and I'm on day 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
Taking a deep breath, taking all that in.
Yeah. It was tough. It is. It still is.
Yeah.
It is.
How has the hunger strike been going? What have been some of your biggest obstacles? How's the team doing?
With the team, we check in daily just to see how everybody's doing, how everybody's feeling. There has definitely been waves of anxiety that have overcome us. There has been, you know, doubt, uncertainty as far as how the city is going to respond to our actions and, you know, our demands. The first couple of days for me, and I think now, are the toughest because, like, when you don't eat solid foods, it's really confusing for your body in general, you know, because it's so accustomed to getting that energy supplied by solid foods that you have such an abundance of it. So when your body kind of cuts that down to maybe 25% of the energy resource that it had before, it goes in panic mode, you know, and you feel that physical pain. And I did. And it translated into the form of being lightheaded. Like I couldn't really stand up, and I still really can't stand up too fast because I get lightheaded and I get dizzy. At night, I like at maybe 5 p.m. on a daily basis now, like my body is just telling me, okay, you have to be like horizontal, you have to rest because you can't do this anymore. Like you don't have the energy. But with everything on my plate right now, like I have to push through it. And it's like I'm battling my own body just to do basic tasks on a daily basis. The stomach pains are almost every day. I have to massage my temples at night just to kind of even relax to go to sleep. Meditation has definitely helped me a lot, and just affirmations just to kind of get through it and ground myself in the midst of the chaos. My fellow comrades have dealt with the same stomach pains, anxiety, fatigue, definitely muscle fatigue, weight loss, and just uncertainty. But what really keeps us going, and most of our energy source, honestly, is just watching the support and just kind of being in awe at the wave of people that really, really are supporting us and rooting for us right now. And we knew this was going to be impactful, but we didn't know how many people would support us just on like a nationwide level and even internationally. So that is a really big source for us, and we're eternally grateful for the people that are supporting us right now.
Yeah, it was so exciting to see someone in my neighborhood with a Stop General Iron face mask yesterday on the north side. What do you want from Mayor Lightfoot and from General Iron, or now South Side Recycling?
Oh yeah, they're crazy rebranding, which is hilarious to me.
I know.
It's like putting a wig on a snake, like it's still a snake. But our main demand for the mayor is to deny this permit, right? Period. Like we don't want this company here. But with our campaign, we have to look at the overarching issue. And the overarching issue is that environmental justice communities are being affected disproportionately. And this needs to stop, and political reform needs to happen in order to preserve the environment and to preserve and improve public health proactively, right? Because a lot of these policies are made reactively, and that's the problem. So our initial demand is to just deny the permit. But considering all of those different factors that I just mentioned, it's a lot larger than just the Southeast side. It's a lot larger than just the residents of the 10th Ward. It's about cities across Chicago and cities across the nation being affected by policies and by processes of this nature, and being politically neglected and ultimately left with the burden of the dumping and pollution that these companies are putting out into our environment. So with that, we're demanding political reform. We're demanding that all of our legislators are held accountable to be a part of this process and really proactively work with us just to create reform in general, right? From alderpersons to city council, to state legislators, to legislators like around the country, and even families, right? Because without it starting at the dinner table, without residents being on board, there's no movement. Like you can't have 10 people representing an entire nation when only 10 people are on the same page about something. So it's political reform. It's for the mayor to deny the permit. And we also, we actually recently met with her staff, and we had a couple of other demands, like having e-buses in environmental justice communities just to reduce emissions, more equitable opportunity for even the COVID vaccine, because this is all happening during a pandemic, which is even crazier. And health clinics, like more access to actual healthcare, and just you would think very simple things, that money can be reallocated to, given the recent news about the budget and 65% of that going to the police department. And then, telling us that there's no funds for environmental justice is very conflicting. But our demands are pretty simple, and the mayor heard our demands, and there was a response that was just completely unacceptable to us and very condescending. So we're definitely brainstorming on ways to keep moving forward with this, because it has to happen. Like one more life lost to pollution and environmental injustice is just one too many for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. For our students and teens watching, can you give your definition of environmental racism and environmental justice, and any other key vocabulary words that would help our political literacy rise?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think breaking down just the term environmental racism is a really good start as far as having those conversations at the dinner table. I think it's an intimidating term for many, because racism has impacted our nation incredibly, and it's been a really scary process to witness. And a lot of people don't really want to accept that racism happens here, unfortunately, but it does, and it will continue to happen until we create policies in place that protect the people over profit. Environmental racism in general is confusing to some because they're like, well, how can the environment be racist? And great question, but it's more so racist in the ways that the environment is protected and racist in the ways that certain groups are prioritized over other groups. That's where the racism part comes in. Because with the example of General Iron, you have to look at the two different neighborhoods, and you have to look at the two different people that live in these neighborhoods, right? So Lincoln Park, wealthy, predominantly white residents. Ted Ford, Black, Latinx, immigrant residents, not wealthy. 44% of our kids live in poverty, high economic hardship. So there's a really big contrast. So those factors have to be taken into consideration. People can choose not to, that's fine, but the factors are still there. So environmental racism is speaking and encompassing the policies that surround the protection of the environment and surrounding the policies that protect businesses to pollute on the environment, especially an environment where certain demographics live. And it's tough. Political justice they're kind of all tied into one another. So environmental racism is a social justice issue as well. And they're all kind of intertwined and like woven together. And you really can't have one without having the other one. Like environmental racism is an issue of racism. It's an issue of classism. And I think just taking baby steps to try and really break down the terms and really understanding what that encompasses will allow a more seamless opportunity for all of us to work together to just kind of chip away at the problems and work towards a better environment for all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. So speaking of chipping away, how can we support you and your team? And by we, I mean Friends of the Parks community and our students watching. What can we do to be allies?
That's a great question. And I really appreciate you even asking. It starts with, excuse me, it starts with having like those difficult conversations at the dinner table, and asking questions like, what do you think about this? And really breaking those social barriers that have been placed on us to not even have these conversations, because realistically, like our environment is us and we are our environment. Especially with air pollution, it's not like there are walls that prevent pollution from coming from the southeast side to the north side. Like it's the same thing. So that's why we're fighting hard to keep a company from coming to the north side, to our side of town, and just in a residential area in general, because the air isn't blocked. So it's still going to reach, lungs that are not in our ward. So I would say start at the dinner table, ask questions. Social media is a great tool just to get some quick information, some quick talking points if you have any questions as well. Following the hashtag deny the permit is a big one. We've been using it throughout our entire campaign. So you can more than likely find information from when we started up until now. And we post on a day-to-day basis. So we're pretty frequent with that. We also use the hashtag Stop General Iron. I would also encourage for people that are a little bit more politically aware to look at campaign donations to different people that would be involved in the process of making political decisions for reform. A lot of the times, let's call a spade, Chicago is very corrupt. And it's been in the news, and this, I believe corruption is taken apart and why there's such a difficulty in denying this permit from certain entities. So I would highly recommend people do their research on that and who's associated with who. I would also recommend, I believe you guys are having a tour on the 27th, right? Yeah. That blew my mind, because a lot of people don't even come to our side of our side of town. We're like a little island, like separated by the Calumet River. So that in itself it's a really important thing of what you guys are doing. And I really want to commend you all for that. That's great. So with that tour, also, I would just recommend looking around, looking at the harshness of the neighborhood and understanding that even our green spaces are right next to pollution, so the enjoyment that we have with our green spaces is very limited. Also, I would recommend looking at the businesses along the river and looking at the different piles that are along the river and just kind of trying to paint a picture as to a windy day in Chicago and what that would mean for our aquatic environment. and what that would mean for our residents that are right next door to these polluting industries. And definitely be aware of the smells, because they definitely will be present in the 10th ward as they have been. So yeah, I think those are really good ways to start. But I think the most important thing is just to have difficult conversations, embrace what's uncomfortable, and know that it's okay to be uncomfortable. And just know that on the other side of being uncomfortable, there's growth and there's opportunity. And it's okay to not have all the answers. You know, like, I'm not an expert in what I'm doing. I was just a really concerned sister that decided to jump into action and ask questions and just kind of move forward with my concern and not just kind of sit and sulk in it. So anybody is capable of doing what I'm doing. You know, anybody's capable of being where I'm at. And, you know, I'm not like a professional environmentalist. I'm not like a scientist or anything, but, you know, I love nature. I love just people being well. I love people being happy. And I love understanding how our environment, you know, plays into our health and well-being and our air and our atmosphere. So doing your own research would help too.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was helpful. I know
that was helpful. I was taking notes down so that we can help pinpoint those for our people watching. And I mean, for me personally, I remember riding my bike past General Iron years ago, and I'd see these like sparks flying and smell, and the smell was like, this isn't good. You know, the body just intuitively. So yeah, we have to deny the permit and stop General Iron. And I'll be at the tour tomorrow. Before we close out, I'd like to ask you 5 rapid fire questions that we are going to ask all of our youth leaders in this series. Are you game?
Okay, let me drink some Gatorade.
Okay.
Let me hydrate for this.
Oh, yeah.
I have to be on point. Okay, rapid fire. If I can add to that last point, I would also just reflect, as just a resident living in Chicago, how the lake makes you feel when you're stressed, you know, and how greenery makes you feel when you're stressed, and how being able to connect with nature, like the pure form of nature, just grass, little bugs, trees, roots, rivers, makes you feel. And if you're able to come to the tour that's happening tomorrow on the 27th, the Friends of the Park is hosting, look at our environment, look at our aquatic environments, look at our parks, look at the trees, look at the streets, and know how they're impacted, and know how that reflects the limited joy and the limited happiness that we can get from the environment. I definitely want to add that.
Thank you. And we're actually going to be watching this interview in the tour tomorrow. So everybody will be prompted by the words you are saying. So thank you for adding that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Are we ready for rapid fire?
Yes.
Number 1, who or what has inspired your activism? And do you have a spiritual or religious background that informs your work in the world? Those are kind of 2 questions in one, but I had to squish them together.
No, that's really cool. Okay, so this was all sparked by just protecting my little sister. She's a really big inspiration for me, and I grew up pretty tough. I grew up in an underfunded school. You know, I grew up like looking around at my friends that went to school on the north side and not understanding why my school couldn't get school uniforms for sports, you know, or new books. So just having those in the back of my head and understanding that like I can be a vessel of change for my community, and I can potentially be the person that's advocating to bring better things into my neighborhood, is always kind of a spark behind me that keeps me going when I want to give up, because I know that it's possible. It's difficult, but it's definitely not impossible. And then the second one, what was the second one?
Do you have a spiritual or religious background that informs your work in the world?
Okay. So I was raised Catholic. I'm not as active in my Catholicism now. Like there are a couple of saints that I still pray to. Like I pray to St. Jude when I encounter like sick folks. But excuse me, recently I've just been more kind of trying to get in tune with just the universe as one, and trying to become fluid with the plane that I'm in, with everything, you know, and just understanding how we all kind of move as one, and we feed off of each other's energy. So I think right now I'm just more in tune spiritually with the universe and nature and the variety that I have in nature, because there's just so much, like the sun, the air, the water, the plants, the dirt, all of it.
Beautiful. Yes. That's really speaks to my path too. Okay, question number 2, even though question number 1 was really 2 questions, but we only have 5. So what is your favorite Chicago park and why?
Oh, that's easy. Calumet Park. I grew up going there. Literally the first tree that I climbed was in Calumet Park. I probably still have the picture in my mom's fridge. Calumet Park is absolutely gorgeous. I grew up watching deer there. Like I just saw a deer there like a couple weeks ago when it was snowing, and she or he, I don't know what it was. They were just sitting in the middle of the park field, and it's like pouring snow, and they're just sitting there enjoying it. And I was like, this is why I don't move from the east side, because you don't get this in the city.
Yeah.
And then we're right on the lake. So when I was younger, we always used to go to the lake on the weekends in the summertime. Like we would bug my dad, even though he was tired from work. We'd be like, come on, let's go to the park. And he would, get his bread and to feed the birds, which now I understand is really bad, and I wish we did it. But we would do that, go jet skiing, like just play on the beach, find other friends on the beach when you were younger. So definitely Calumet Park for sure.
Great. I know it. I have childhood memories too of just when my dad would come to the swimming pool with us. It was like the biggest deal ever,
Yeah,
when the
right?
dads would come to play.
Yeah, exactly.
So number 3, what music are you listening to now?
Oh, house music for sure. There's like Robin, CC, um, oh man, all those pioneers, like house music for sure. I listen to The Weeknd a lot. Who else I listen to? I listen to Janae Aiko. She just kind of soothes me when I'm in a really stressful mood. She has like her bowls as well that are wonderful. Um, who else? And then Bad Bunny. Got to throw some Bad Bunny in there.
All right, cool. Well, you've given us all some stuff to look up and check out, but you are a true Chicagoan with house music.
Yes. Oh, and Bobby Caldwell for sure. What You Won't Do for Love is like always on repeat.
Okay, awesome. Question number 4, if you could be an animal, which animal would you be and why?
Man, I've thought about this question so many times, and every time I think about it, I change it. You might have got me with this one. I know growing up, I always used to say a panther, just because I loved how distinguishing they looked from the cats, from the big cats. I loved that they were in the jungle and could be on the ground and be in the trees and be incognito and just kind of be on their own, and how fierce and feline they were. But at the same time, you would still kind of look at them as gentle because they were a cat, and how intelligent and intentional they were with how they moved. So I think I'm gonna stick with the panther.
Okay, that's some powerful medicine right there,
Yeah.
the panther.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and our question number 5 is, what is your message for young folks listening?
You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever it is you want to do. Don't ever let an adult that cannot communicate with you properly or can't understand your message stop you from believing that you can accomplish something. You have a right to set your own boundaries. You have a right to educate yourself. You have a right to be curious. You have a right to ask questions. You have a right to explore. You have a right to your education. You have a right to your health. And you have a right to have a voice in the decisions that are being made across the city, because ultimately they do affect you. And you have a right to be respected, just as adults expect to be respected as well. And just know that if you feel like there isn't help out there, if you feel like no one understands you, if you feel alone, if you feel confused, hurt, traumatized, there's always someone out there that is willing to help you. Even if it's just one person, asking for help is okay. And it's not a sign of weakness, and it's not a sign of you not being capable of helping yourself. So I just want to make that something normal for young people to just know that it's okay to ask for help, and just know that there are people out there that want to see you succeed and want to give you the tools for you to be the best you. So call me if you guys need anything.
So powerful, Yesenia. Wow. Our final question is, how can folks follow you and stay in touch with your efforts? I know you mentioned the hashtag deny the permit and stop general iron. Do you have a public account or a website, or how could people stay in touch and follow your work in the world?
My campaign work is mostly posted through my organizations. So United Neighbors of the 10th Ward has an Instagram. It's United 10th Ward on Instagram. Shy Hunger Strike on Instagram as well. Southeast Side Coalition of Banned Pet Coke and the Southeast Environmental Task Force are absolutely wonderful resources to utilize on Facebook. There's a huge platform on there for them. We post a lot of videos, live videos, just so people can get involved and kind of watch as they can. Following the hashtags, like you mentioned, just you can Google my name too. There's a bunch of articles now, which is crazy to me, with the work that we're doing. So you can Google my name, and like Block Club Chicago, the Tribune wrote an op-ed on us, which is I'm still kind of in shock about. The Guardian, Northwest Indiana Times. So there's been a lot of outlets, Univision, that have been very supportive, which I'm very grateful for. So there's tons of articles there. There are also wonderful organizations on the Southeast side that have a lot of tools to help understand the cumulative impacts of the pollution that we face since the industrial steel boom, like Alliance of the Southeast, Southeast Youth Alliance, again, United Neighbors of the 10th Ward, and then Aware Chicago. We have partners in South Shore too. So, and like, you can always reach out to me directly on Facebook. Yesenia Chavez, you can just search me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I do have school, but I, message when I can, or just shoot me an email, whatever works.
Wonderful. Yesenia, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. You are breaking boundaries. We admire your drive for bringing awareness and equality to all Chicago communities. Thanks to our listeners for joining in for our first of many youth activist conversations. To stay in touch with Friends of the Parks, you can check us out at our website, fotp.org, and follow Friends of the Parks on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Thank you all so much. Yesenia, we wish you well. Thank you. Take really good care.
Thank you. I love how we coordinated too. It worked out.
Yeah, it really did.
Love it. Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.